Before I was a business development manager, I was a researcher at Wits School of Governance, Center for Public Enterprise. And from that particular experience, it inspired me to pursue postgraduate studies, which is a PhD in looking at how does public procurement become an instrument to drive industrialization in post-colonial countries or developing countries. Now, from my study, I take only a particular section which is relevant for this particular convention or conference of IPM. Basically, I'll be looking and sharing with you about how technology, online technology-driven or drive alternative streams to resolve scarce skills and critical skills. And that online or technologically based alternative stream tends to negate traditional forms of knowledge and skills acquisition or the existing institutions that arguably are incapable to respond to the dynamic and complex and ever-changing societal development. One of the scholars, Hidalgo, they populated, gathered data across the world, hundreds and hundreds of data in terms of products and services that are produced, and they analyzed the differences and an observation that why are there different patterns and so forth. In their observation, what they've noted is that not all countries face the same opportunities when it comes to development. And that poor countries in particular tend to be located at the periphery of the product space. We're moving towards products. New product is harder to achieve. And more interestingly, among countries with a similar level of development and similar level of production and export sophistication, there is a significant variation in the options set implied by their current productive structure. In essence, is that there is a productive structure that exists in the world. In this part of productive structure, the observation is that a number of services and products are located, and this thing keeps on dancing. It exposes that I'm not an idle, capable individual. So in that observation is that there's a pattern for developing countries. There's a pattern of industrialized countries, and I'll expand that later on. And that pattern explains why several countries, particularly countries like South Africa, are incapable to move further. And what makes this important is that the majority of you as human resource managers, HRD professionals and practitioners, know better the whole debate about scarce and critical skills, right? And know better the debate about what is now called occupations in high demand. So, other points is that industrialized countries export products at the core. So in this particular product structure, right? So you map out all the products that exist: agriculture, mining, textile, metal, technology, you name all of them, right? And then we look into what are the patterns and what makes other countries to be able to move with ease. South Africa is an example. If you speak about the balance account in terms of trade and export, South Africa export more capital as contrary to it imports in contrary to it exporting, right? And that creates a negative, right? Now, they are saying industrialized countries, they are highly concentrated in the core of the product structure. So they have their production capabilities in what is referred in the production structure, and hence they are able to produce in the core machinery, chemicals, and metal products. They also occupy products at the periphery. So you find in industrialized countries that they are able to produce agricultural products. There's some mining and so forth. But at the same time, you find them at the core. The core speaks to chemicals, metals, products, machinery, and so forth. Right? Now, to give an example of what makes the whole study also interesting, and probably I'll link it to the human resource professionals. An example is that in any developing country, the chemical sector is the smallest sector in terms of employment and so on. But because of its strategic location, chemicals are used for conversions of other products. You speak FMCG, you speak about what is extracted from the mines and so forth. As it goes the process of beneficiation, chemicals are central to that. South Korea and many others are also nice examples to see that. But the chemical sector requires a specific set of production capabilities. Now, what is following industrialized countries is East Asian countries, which exhibit an advantage in the textile, garments, and electronics sector. Then you have the Latin America and the Caribbean countries, which are specialized in industrialized industries or sectors which are closer to the periphery. If you look at Latin America, Argentina, Brazil, and so forth, they have not moved into the core of the production of the product structure. They still operate at the periphery. But when you look at sub-Saharan Africa, it demonstrates an advantage in few product classes, all of which they occupy the product space periphery. The product space periphery is that you are at the outliers in agriculture and mining. And when we speak about mining, it does not include the beneficiation process where an iron ore is extracted and subjected to the process of beneficiation until we've got a teaspoon and so forth and so forth. So those other production capabilities, most of the sub-Saharan Africa, they don't have those particular capabilities. That's what emerges in the study of Hidalgo and his colleagues. One of the theories says that that is indigenous growth theory, or the economists argue that improvement in productivity or achievement of higher performing organizations can be tied directly to faster innovation, more investment in human capital. Now, when you link it to government, that government and private sector institutions are to nurture innovation initiatives while offering incentives. Does the government provide incentives for the private sector if the private sector invests more in human capital and also faster innovation? I think also the keyword faster has got a specific significance on its own. Right? Now, under this particular theory, what is pointed is that knowledge-based industries play a particularly important role, especially in telecommunications, software, and other high-tech industries. Still, any person who emails, who send letters, who post letters, maybe, and if there is, probably the number is negligible, it's extremely few, right? So basically the production capabilities that relates to the system of sending emails has been rendered obsolete and irrelevant. Right? So countries that are still operating that particular mode, they will have their own limitations in terms of moving and resolve some of their national imperatives, such as the eradication of poverty, job creation, and many other aspects, which I will also expand later on. Right. Now, having spoken nicely about faster innovation and more investment in human capital and also government playing a role, there is a big part. The big part is that, as an example, is that the university's throughput rate, right, it's inadequate as a supply system. So the entire education system, if you break it into 3 or 2 subsystems, high schools provide inadequate learners with the required metric results to enter universities. Now, those who go to the university, not all of them complete their university studies in a record time. So that's basically the argument, that Now, you have employers, you've got companies, you've got HR professionals who are expecting that universities, private public institutions in particular, will provide you with a specific types of people with certain competencies. The argument is that the throughput rate is low. It's low quantitatively and also qualitatively. The examples is that the VET working group has identified, the VET working group that looked at the retention and throughput rate, they found that an average of less than 50% of students graduate. So students who start their degree now, in a period of 3 years, 50% of them are going to complete or do complete their studies. So we've got a subsystem that is unable to contribute in resolving scarce and critical skills, is unable to, right? In other professions, in other qualifications, arguably, it will take a university 10 years to achieve 100% throughput rate. So it means that in first decade, 10 years, second decade, 10 years, then probably you'll have a relatively reasonable throughput rate. But at the same time, countries like South Korea, it took them 20 years, in 1960 to 1980, to be the highly industrializing country. The 2 decades it will take South Africa to resolve and achieve that throughput rate that has been resolved in South Korea. Now, former statistician general Wadilo Hotla in 2016 has also pointed out that he confirmed basically there were a working group of that did the research at VETS, the Council of Higher Education, and the 2010 findings, that whereas universities had a balanced growth in the amount of student registration, so there's a high number of students who enroll at universities, right, in the past decade or so, but they are not nearly enough graduates leaving universities. Throughput rate varies dramatically from one university to another university, and there's a high discrepancy that has been observed when people are looking at the UNISA and also with your traditional universities or contact universities. Right? That after 4 years, the completion rate at UNISA is 11.3%. So for people to go into the UNISA system and exit, 11.3% complete, as compared to the 9% at contact universities, that is as pointed out by James 2016. Right? Now, I think this also becomes a question for yourself as human resource practitioners, professionals, that are in a position to invest in that type of education system where the return on investment is low or the risk is high. And further to provoke a further thinking of a need to explore an alternative forms that can allow human resource professionals to engage in innovative and continuous form to develop and train your staff members and your employees. What is the international comparisons and performance? The United Kingdom and Denmark throughput rate is 80%. You can compare South Africa, take 9%. UK and Denmark, it is 80%. I hope we don't have government officials who would not give me consultancy work. Now, having said that, so I just gave you statistics about the performance of higher education institutions, shared about the indigenous growth theory, that the growth and economic development is internally stimulated, and for it to be internally stimulated, there must be faster innovation and investment in human capital. So those become part of the 2 key variables that will be able to drive economic development and industrialization, create employment, job opportunities, and so forth and so forth. But also, Schumpeter argues creative distraction theory. Right? He says competition fuels creative distraction. competition among or within firms, sectors, and so forth, and globally, fuels creative destruction. Now, Schumpeter sums it up as follows: that the fundamental impulse that sets and keeps the capitalist engine in motion comes from the new consumers, new consumer goods, new methods of production, or new methods of transportation, the new markets, the new forms of industrial organization that capitalist enterprise creates, in summer. Right? So it is key. Schumpeter also says that in the creative destruction theory, that what capitalism does, inherently it destroys and renders old methods of production obsolete. It renders the skills and knowledge and education base that existed obsolete. And what it then does, it brings into being new forms of skills, of knowledge, and education. So in simpler terms, if you're a human resource professional, managers, and so forth, and you're planning on the basis of the knowledge base that exists today, the likelihood is that that knowledge base can be rendered obsolete in the next coming few years. And that is driven by technology. To expand the argument by Schumpeter, the example of various stages of industrialization. Right? The first industrial revolution in 1765, mechanization, a process that replaced agriculture, right? With industry as foundations of economic structure. Arthur Lewis, in one of the arguments, he says that shift people from villages, from rural areas, into urban areas, and then in urban areas, companies will have excess of labor, and you can utilize that particular labor to drive industrialization. That argument relatively is located in 1765. Right? The second industrial revolution of 1870, new technology emerges. New technological advancement initiated the emergence of new sources of energy, electricity, gas, and oil. So effectively, people or companies that were operating in that particular sector were rendered obsolete, irrelevant, and had to shut down simply because of they were unable to see the changing patterns within the society and globally. The third industrial revolution of 1969, the new type of energy whose potential surpassed its predecessor, the nuclear energy. The fourth industrial revolution, that's where we find ourselves, now and beyond. Its genesis is situated at the dawn of the third millennium and with the emergence of the internet. So as I speak about, or as we speak about the fourth industrial revolution, arguably, others are already arguing and speaking about the fifth industrial revolution. So if you still operate on the basis of the fourth industrial revolution, access to internet, and so forth, already other countries have moved to the fifth industrial revolution. So it means that we are living in a society, in a global world, that in terms of skills, knowledge base, and education is moving at a faster rate. And if, as human resource managers and professionals, don't have an institutional capability that enables you to move at that particular rate, right, you'll find yourself, your companies being unable to compete internationally and so forth. One of the presenters in the earlier session, he spoke about in the country we still use Z83. So we speak about fourth industrial revolution, we speak about the fifth industrial revolution. It means that the country is lagging behind on probably the second or the third industrial revolution. Consequently, as it moves at that particular rate, you may be unable to resolve some of the maladies facing the society because of the ideas, the knowledge that you still utilize, the sources of information, they've been rendered obsolete by the changing society. Key issues: planning for social and organizational reconfiguration, to innovating in a truly connected world. One gentleman earlier in the morning spoke of that we need to look at Estonia, a country somewhere next to Russia, with close to 10 million households or population. 8 million of them, they are connected. 8 million of them, they are connected. So they have already moved from the 4th Industrial Revolution, and that gives them an advantage to move to the 5th Industrial Revolution. So human resource professionals in the country and those of Estonia, you're operating at a different level and standards in terms of thinking and planning. Universities, I'll speak about universities later, competing in an all-inclusive global talent market. So if there is somebody talented in this country, that talent is not only accessible to the South African market. If the international market are able to get exposed to that particular talent, they will snitch it. Why? Simply because of that talent is operating at the 4th or the 5th Industrial Revolution, whilst we are still trapped in the 3rd or 2nd Industrial Revolution. An exponential pattern of technology change, human and machine collaboration. While poor countries have trouble developing more competitive exports and fail to converge to the income levels of rich countries, is expanded by that, right? Economies grow by upgrading. Upgrading becomes key. The products they produce and export. Now, upgrading will speak to the skills, the knowledge, the education, and other means that are used to drive the companies to function, right? The technology, key capital institutions, and skills needed to make newer products are more easily adapted from some products than other products. In this particular case, the argument is the following, that if a country is trapped or functions at the periphery, example, we are functioning and the skills base, the knowledge base that you use is of the 3rd Industrial Revolution, right? You'll be trapped in that particular mode. And as a consequence, you are unable to move to the core of the production structure. The core production structure is that the country will be incapable to compete, to be competitive internationally in producing the products that are highly demanded internationally. You move to the 4th and the 3rd Industrial Revolution stage in terms of the knowledge and the skills base. I think the next one will be demonstrated by the clipping that I thought of sharing with you. Right? Because of job clustering, right? Jobs that have been done today will no longer be the same 3-5 years to come. If you have done your human resource management qualification in 2010, you might be forced by conditions to go and upskill. Right? But if you go to upskill, you should go and identify institutions that are operating at the 4th and the 3rd Industrial Revolution, 4th and 5th Industrial Revolution. Institutions that are still operating at this level, where people sit in this particular pattern. There's a teacher in front, a lecturer in front, and the lecturer becomes a transmitter belt of knowledge, right? The 4th and the 5th Industrial Revolution says that is becoming irrelevant. Why? Because of online capabilities give people access to knowledge and skills. When you apply blended learning, when people sit in class, they deal with complex case matters, not to define what's management, not to define what is strategy. Those are basic knowledge skills that you can access by using an online technological capability. Acquiring skills such as complex problem-solving skills, high-level technical skills, and social skills have become more important for workers to adapt to new and emerging industries. The challenges facing the global force or workforce will be significant and require collaborative and innovative emphasis on enhanced method for developing the skills needed to adapt and remain productive. I mean, one practical example is that probably in 1980, you'll find a department that is responsible for the leave system, being 50 people. Just leave. You apply, there's a procedure manual that says complete a yellow form. A yellow form is received by so-and-so, he takes it to the manager and signs, and somebody must calculate the dates, and all those particular processes. So it's the past industrial. Now the current 4th Industrial Revolution and probably the 5th Industrial Revolution has rendered that particular method obsolete. Now you've got an automated system. In 5 minutes, right, people apply for their leaves and it's all approved. And the level of reporting and accountability is accurate, and also you've got real time. Online learning technology has profoundly changed the education system. Technology such as online learning or e-learning for others is redefining the entire pedagogy. Right? An instructor or lecture cannot be replaced. But the person who uses online capability blended learning, you can repeat the lessons, right? And for further synthesis, thinking, and critical thinking, and for people to absorb whatever content they're dealing with. Technology has greatly expanded access to education and inclusivity. So a person who resides in deep rural areas, as long as that particular person has got a cell phone and data, he can be able to gain access to online education system. Therefore, the issue of universities becoming popular is being rendered obsolete by the emergence of online education system. The walls of the classrooms are no longer a barrier as technology enables new ways of learning, communicating, and working collaboratively by the learners or by the students. E-learning or online learning changes the way that people were taught. Example, I write out the subject and you'll go away and learn it. So the teacher will rewrite what is in the textbook. And then you rewrite what the teacher or the lecturer writes, right? But now computers are involved and people can teach themselves, and this is the whole purpose of online learning or e-learning, and that will help HRDs to perform better. That is argued by Churchill 2010. E-learning or online technology is a powerful and efficient tool for human resource usage to target the resolution of scarce and critical skills, inclusive of occupation in high demand. The argument here is that instead of focusing in traditional forms of learning and teaching, where you take your employees, they must get study leaves, and all those sort of things, and go to university or to institutions that are trapped in the traditional mode of the first or the second industrial revolution, right? Explore the online facilities where your employees can learn anytime 24/7, and they are able to absorb knowledge and skills, and at the same time, it enables your companies or your institutions to become more effective and competitive. That can support and transform education in many ways, from making it easier for HRD practitioners to create instructional materials, to enabling new ways for people to learn and work together. As I've said earlier on, I'm from the professional body. We no longer call people in the same classroom for them to get CPD points. They go online for continuous professional development. They go online, access that particular material, that online capability. There's nothing like a call where somebody will help you. It's a security tight system. It's able to say that if you're supposed to spend 30 hours, it's able to calculate that for the time the person logs in. And at the end of your 30 hours, then the person does the assessment, the person is able to get the CPD points. So the whole thing of sitting in class and writing a test is rendered obsolete by the emerging technology. And I think also it saves a lot of trees. Now, key quality of human resource development, Kraft, very popular in South African education system, pointed out that he knows that due to the rise of the new global economy, characterized by high quality, high value added, export-oriented manufacturing and services, a key quality of human resource development is the attainment of high participation rates in general education and training, and in particular the development of multifunctional skills capabilities. In conclusion, the fourth industrial revolution urges human resource development professionals to think creatively about the manufacturing processes or service delivery processes, the value chains, distribution, customer service processes. In the meanwhile, the future of education emphasizes the immense need to look beyond the areas and strategically utilizes the Internet of Things. to prepare the coming workforce for the challenges ahead. Now, arguably what comes out, as I pointed earlier on, that what online capability does, it gives people access, inclusivity to access knowledge, education, and also skills. South Africa is ranked the 5th in the world for mobile data usage. First is Russia, America is the 7th. How to utilize that particular advantage as human resource professionals and exploit that particular, because of what it argues is that the vast majority of the people in the country, your employees, your senior managers and so forth, have got access of that powerful tool called a cell phone or a smartphone and so forth, right? But while we speak about the 4th industrial revolution, arguably, the 5th industrial revolution is just on the corner. We must catch up. That we speak about the artificial intelligence. Can you play that? Right? This one it will take you probably 3 minutes, not long. But the argument is to demonstrate that the 4th and the 5th industrial revolution, there's a significant leap. And this particular clip, it will demonstrate one aspect in terms of how knowledge is used in this particular case, development of knowledge. It's used in this particular case as a form of defense. And as Africa as a country, if we are not operating and functioning at that particular level, unfortunately other countries are going to be ahead of us and will continue to supply them with our own labor, whereas they continue to benefit from our own labor and resources. Yeah, so you can pick. No?